Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sam Furio. I am the outreach coordinator for the building decarbonization team at the Maryland Department of the Environment. Our team is responsible for developing and implementing the proposed building energy performance standards. Thank you for joining today's Campus Compliance Working Group, Session 1. I will be moderating this afternoon session. For those of you that have had questions regarding BEPS and have emailed the building decarbonization team, I am the face behind the email and also behind the phone. So keep your questions coming our way, and look forward to talking with you. So thank you for joining this working group session. This afternoon, Dr. Zach Brazola will be talking through BEPS campus compliance with a focus on forms and benchmarking. Just so everyone knows, this session will be recorded and uploaded to the BEPS YouTube playlist. There will be a portion for live Q&A at the end of this session, but please bear with us as we go through our presentation first. If you have missed any of our previous informational sessions or require any of the materials distributed during a previous session, you can view previous recordings on that BEPS YouTube playlist, and all materials provided in the chat during each session are posted in the video's description on YouTube, so you can find those there. Just so everyone's aware, if you've done these sessions before, you probably know how we do it, but if this is your first time, we disable the chat. In order to submit questions for the Q&A portion, you'll need to click on the Activities button, which is found in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. You can see a little circle, triangle, square. You hover over it, it says Activities. If you click on that, that's how you get to the Q&A feature. So submit your questions there, and we'll work to address them at the end of this session as time allows. We will also be running 2 polls during this session, and you can access the poll feature during the same Activities button. So just think circle, triangle, square, that's where you need to go. Again, we'll work to address all questions during this session. If we're unable to get to your question, we'll work to address them in future informational sessions. And with that, I'd now like to introduce Dr. Zach Brazola, Section Head of MDE's Building Decarbonization Team, to run us through today's session. Take it away, Zach.
Thank you very much, Sam, and thank you all for joining us this afternoon. Before diving in, if you require an overview of BEPS, we point you to those previous webinars that Sam mentioned and our technical documentation that is currently available on the department's BEPS website. You can find it by scanning the QR code on the left side of your screen or by searching Maryland BEPS in Google. If you've not been getting emails from us about some of these webinars, you can join our BEPS email list, which is on the QR code at the right. You can also email us at beps.mde@maryland.gov to get added to that email list. Today's webinar is focused on a specific aspect of BEPS implementation, but if you have any questions regarding the proposed regulation, you may contact the Building Decarbonization team via that email address or the phone number at the bottom of your screen. So why are we holding today's working group? Well, for a few reasons. You're going to see that the core goal is to help you decide if campus compliance might be right for you. And it will also help you understand the campus compliance pathway, how to meet the BEPS requirements as a campus. We're also going to share a few resources and request your feedback on the campus compliance process and guidance that we're going to put out today. We'll also then provide that time for Q&A to answer any questions you have about campus compliance. And any questions we don't get to, we'll try to address in future sessions or through updates in the guidance. So before we get started, let's take a poll. How many of you, how many buildings are in your campus if you're here representing a campus? How many are on your campus or one of them that you're thinking about? You can, again, go to that circle, triangle, square in the bottom right to answer this poll question. Choose 1 if you've got 2 buildings, 2 if you've got 3 to 5, 3 if you've got 5 to 10, 4 if you've got 10 to 20, and 5 if you've got more than 20 buildings. Let's see, we'll give everyone a minute here to fill out that poll. All righty. We've got about 45 votes in right now. That's about half of everyone here. That's pretty good. And it looks like the winner, I should be showing you all the results now, is that everybody, more than 20 buildings is clearing away the winner here. So that's, most folks have pretty big campuses. That's great. That's what we're intending here for. So going on to kind of what we're really talking about there, campus, what is a campus within BEPS? As defined in the regulation, a campus is a collection of two or more buildings of any building type or size that act as a single cohesive property with a single shared primary function and are owned or operated by the same party. They must also fulfill one of the following. They must be connected to a district energy system, be served by the same electric or gas meter, or be served by the same heating or cooling system or systems, which is not a district energy system. So an important note on campus reporting, Energy Star Portfolio Manager requires several property types to benchmark as a campus. These properties do not need to submit a campus compliance form unless other situations apply or they're listed separately on the covered buildings list. So hospitals, hotels, multifamily housing, and senior living communities under Portfolio Manager guidance, it's linked on the bottom and we should be dropping the link in the chat. These types of properties are required if they're getting a Energy Star score, which is not what's needed for BEPS. Again, there's been confusion. That's not what's needed for BEPS, but for these properties, if they're doing stuff outside of Maryland BEPS, they're required to benchmark as a campus in Portfolio Manager. And so for those buildings, they don't need to actually do anything for us to report as a campus unless they're listed separately on the covered buildings list. And then we need to have a form so that we know that this one entry that we get is all tied in with the 3 or 4 buildings on our list so that we're not saying, oh, you haven't benchmarked this building when in fact it was included. So that's kind of a little bit of an asterisk on some of this. But in general, if you've got one of these property types, you don't have to go through this campus compliance pathway. So let's go to this next poll question to better understand where everyone is. Given everything I just said, what kind of property are you going to be benchmarking? Is it a hospital, a hotel, a multifamily housing, senior living community, or something else that really does fall under our definition of campus compliance pathways? Again, go to that circle, triangle, square. People seem to find it just fine last time to answer that poll question. All righty, releasing the results. I see 43 votes, so just about the same. 45 votes, look at that, same as last time. It looks like most people are here because they're going to be benchmarking some other type of campus. Well, you've come to the right place. And for the other folks here, probably still good information, but know that we're trying to make this as streamlined as possible so that if you're already benchmarking in Portfolio Manager or meeting that guidance, there's not additional burden from our standpoint. So let's go on to the next slide. What does a campus actually look like when we're talking about these kind of campus compliance pathways? Well, here's an example from Towson University. They've got a whole bunch of buildings. They've got a shared energy supply system around this campus, as well as some shared metering. So a whole bunch of buildings on that campus are all going to be reported as one entity for campus compliance. Here's another example on the next slide. The Maryland Correctional Institution in Hagerstown. You can see there's kind of one big building, but inside the fence line, for example, a couple of these other buildings might be connected up. And this is an example where this is the core thing that we've been getting questions about. All of these you need to be on the same kind of property physically together. You can't be in different parts of the state. You need to be, in a contiguous area here. So these buildings on the right side of that kind of main complex, they could be included in a campus if they're all kind of part of this, and maybe there's a shared meter between some of those buildings, and that would be what kind of brings them into campus compliance. So why would you choose this pathway? Well, there are a couple of perks of the campus compliance pathway. It allows building owners to aggregate all buildings on the campus and meet a campus-wide BEPS standard. And it allows you to have a little more flexibility to decide which building should be upgraded to meet that aggregate standard and at what time. So for example, it might be more cost effective to reduce emissions more from certain buildings in your campus than they might otherwise meet at an interim standard and leave other buildings untouched. So maybe you get one building to net zero by 2030, and the building right next to it is a little bit higher than its standard, but collectively as a campus, you're meeting your interim standard 1. So that's why you might go about campus compliance, as well as the ease of benchmarking. So for campuses, and it might be a technical reason as well, for campuses, you're doing it often because you have a shared system where you can't easily attribute energy use to individual buildings. And so you can enter that all in the energy use of your shared system as one in Portfolio Manager, and you don't have to break it down to individual buildings. So onto the next slide, it's really important. Campuses have the same reporting and compliance deadlines as single property buildings. You must put benchmarking data into Energy Star Portfolio Manager by June 1st of every year and do the required data checks that happen every year. And that report should have all the data from the previous calendar year, which would be January 1st to December 31st. And it's also important when we get to third-party verification, first in 2026 and every 5 years thereafter, you will also have to do third-party verification of your campus. Now, let's dive in a little bit more onto what the reporting requirements are. What energy data do you have to have for your campus? It's important to note, campus-level reporting includes all buildings on the campus if they are on shared systems and/or meters. However, you can exclude energy consumption from the following on your campus: food service facilities, electric vehicle charging, other electricity uses excluded by the benchmarking tool, and emissions from the required combustion equipment if a federal or state regulation requires a covered building to use a backup generator or other equipment that must run on combustible fuels. You can find more information about this in our exemption working group, which I'll mention when that is at the end. But these are the standard exemptions that apply across the rest of the regulation as well to individual buildings. And we have ways for estimating certain end uses here, but some of the others, you really do need to have a metering scheme, for example, for that generator, if you're trying to exclude that. It's key to note that if a building is on a campus, but is separately metered and has no shared systems, you can benchmark and report that building separately. And this is kind of the default. You do not need to take this campus compliance pathway at all. You can follow and benchmark at individual building levels if you'd like. But if it's easier to do it at the campus because of the district systems or the shared meters or anything like that, this is the pathway available to you. So say you want to take us up on this pathway, how do you get started? The first step is to submit a campus compliance selection form. We'll cover that in a moment. And then you'll report your campus buildings in Portfolio Manager. Again, usually just as one entry for that whole shared system. But if you've already got them entered in as separate buildings, you can aggregate it together. And when you set up your property in Portfolio Manager, this is going to be similar to the process of benchmarking an individual building. But here on the right side of the screen, instead of doing one property, my property is a single building, you're actually going to say I'm more than one building. And here we said, well, you're 5 buildings. And you're going to enter that there. And that's going to kind of get you started down the path of filling out all the floor area usages for these different property types. So on to the next slide. These are the actual forms we're going to have for these different sections. And so there's 3 different ones: the BEPS campus level compliance pathway selection, and then the changes to campus buildings reporting form, and then benchmarking as a campus for buildings not owned by the principal owner. The BEPS campus level compliance pathway selection form is mandatory for all building owners who wish to comply with BEPS as a campus, unless you're required to benchmark as a campus by portfolio manager, and you're not listed separately on the covered buildings list. So again, there are more forms and work to do to go down this pathway. No one is required to take it, but if you'd like to take it, you have to work on additional information to help us get that campus into the system. So I'm going to walk through each form now and highlight the key information you'll need. The purpose of this form is to identify the buildings on the campus and develop campus level performance standards. And we're going to release shortly here, we'll send you the link at the end of the presentation, our draft guidance document on campus level compliance. It's going to go through the requirements of campus level compliance, and it's going to share key information from the 3 different forms we're talking about, as well as a spreadsheet we're going to have that accompanies this. So don't worry, this isn't the only time you're going to see this information. We're going to share that form or that guidance document, and we have a form for you to provide your feedback if there are any improvements or changes you'd like to see that you think could help us improve those forms for everybody. So just to kind of give you a high level here, this is a lot of what I've said already. It's required if you're going to go down this campus level compliance pathway. And you may also use the form to identify buildings on a campus that are not owned by the principal campus owner and that will report and comply with regulation as an individual building instead of being aggregated into the campus level report. So an example we talk about is maybe you have a college or university campus and you've leased some space on your campus to a third-party provider for housing, and they've built a dorm that is not owned by your college or university. And if that building is going to be complying with BEPS on its own per the contract with that third-party provider, then even though it is on your campus and maybe you're doing campus compliance for the rest of that campus, you're going to actually pull that one building out. And the assumption there is, again, because it's already a separate provider, you have all that sub-metered energy data. It's not on shared systems. So you can, if it doesn't meet those campus definitions, pull it out of the main campus, even if you're doing campuses for the rest of it. You also must confirm that all energy data is entered into Portfolio Manager for all campus buildings, including those under 35,000 square feet that are on shared systems and meters with covered buildings. Now, in that example I just mentioned about that building that's on a campus but owned by somebody else, if the campus owner and the building owner of that building owner agree, you can include it in the campus. That brings up this other form, the request to benchmark as a campus for buildings on a campus not owned by the principal campus owner. Talk about that in a minute. Let's go on to the next slide. So here's what's going to be on this form, and we're aiming for, this is going to be a web form that you'll fill out. We just kind of put it in this format to share it with everybody and get feedback. Provide some basic information about the campus, the number of buildings, a main address for that campus that we can mail to and kind of puts it on its a main spot, and give us a bit of an overview of the campus, a sentence to tell us this is a college campus with a bunch of buildings, just so that we get a sense for what we're looking at. And then you're going to attach a spreadsheet, and we've created a template for you to fill out with information like the building name, the street address, city, county, and zip code, the gross floor area, and the property type for each campus building, and square footage for each use type. The UBIDs if you're already on the covered buildings list, and if you're not on the covered buildings list for one of those buildings, then the latitude and longitude of that building so that we can generate a UBID for you. And we have some information in the spreadsheet about how to find that information from Google Maps, but you can find it from other software or GIS. And then a note if you're kind of excluding that building because it's owned by somebody else. So if we go to the next slide, this is just a screenshot of what if we can go to the next slide. Yeah, there we go. Just a little delay. This is a screenshot of what that spreadsheet looks like. It's a little long, so you're seeing two pieces in one slide, but we put an example for here, MDE's building Montgomery Park in Baltimore. You can see that it's two of the three buildings have UBIDs. The third one is some outbuilding that's under 35,000 square feet, but it's on a shared system. So we want to include it. And we're going to benchmark that whole thing as a campus. And so there's the spreadsheet, you fill it out. That one building that didn't have an ID's got its own, you put in your latitude and longitude. You don't need that many decimals, but that's what comes out of Google automatically. And it just helps us precisely pinpoint that building. And then you're going to check that box if it's not owned by the principal owner. You're going to check the box if it's not owned and you're going to include it. That's the orange box. And then the changes are kind of this next form that I'll talk about in a minute as well. This spreadsheet is meant to be a living document each year. If something changes, you're going to update it, send it back to us, and fill out a form to send it back to us saying, I've added a new building, I've demolished a building on this campus, and that's going to have to trigger us to recalculate all your standards. So things will change over time. This is, again, very different from those folks doing standard benchmarking and reporting of a single building because we're creating composite standards representative of all your property types. Let's go on to the next slide. So I started to get into this just now, but if changes happen, right? You've changed an existing building square foot, you've had footage, you've had an addition or something, or you've shrunk it down for some reason. If you've done new construction or demolished a building, if you've changed the use type, or it's now unoccupied, or it's becoming occupied. These are kind of the things that you can mark. We have an option to mark that in the form as well, in the form, and then in the spreadsheet we're going to send around. And then we just ask you to attach that same spreadsheet. So that's what the changes to campus buildings reporting form looks like. Now, on to the next slide, this multiple owners thing. And I know this is confusing. So this is trying to capture it all in one spot. In general, we're quite confident that 9 times out of 10 campuses are owned and operated by the same party. But if a building on a campus is not owned by the principal campus owner, they can report and comply at that individual building level. But if this is the case, that owner should indicate that that building is owned by a different party in the campus level compliance pathway form and exclude this building from the reporting, right? It would, if you're looking at a map of that campus and there's this big 50,000 square foot building, but it's not covered in your campus compliance, you just need to say, this is somebody else's building. And that just helps us as we do the tracking. Conversely, if you want to include that building that is not owned by the principal campus owner, you can aggregate it in if you'd like. Again, not required, up to you. It's a flexibility, but you have to just submit a form and show that you and the building owner have agreed to do this so that we can continue to process you forward. So on to the next slide. This is for campuses that are not owned by the campus owner and want to report and comply with the building energy performance standard at the campus level. The same kind of thing, submit the same form, check a different box. Please attach that spreadsheet and attach a copy of your agreement with the principal campus owner to include this building in the campus level reporting and compliance. So that's just showing to us that you're going to make that happen. Now, let's go on to the next slide. District energy. I know this is everyone's favorite topic. Campuses with district energy systems may or may not need to report district energy data depending on how they benchmark and report their campus. And before I even get into this, we're going to have a specific district energy working group whose date is still to be determined. You can actually sign up for that next working group on district energy now, and we'll let you know when we pick a date and time. We're still working out the final details there, but that's coming and is meant for those folks that are providing district energy to covered buildings or getting district energy. Now, most campuses, we think, are not going to need to follow all the district energy guidance because they're going to report at the campus level. So if you're doing whole campus reporting on a district energy system through the campus compliance pathway, you're going to provide one benchmarking report for your whole campus. You're going to report your plant electricity and fuel inputs and any other energy used by your covered buildings and buildings in that campus. You're not going to have to do anything about the district energy factors. You're not going to have to report that district energy data to MDE. And we're going to create emissions and this is a little old, we need to edit it, but we will provide emission standards blended at the campus level. And we will, so that's the kind of key there. The second scenario is if you're a campus and you're doing building level reporting, we're only going to include buildings over 35,000 square feet. That's if you're just doing those individual buildings. Then you're going to submit an individual benchmarking report for each building. And you're going to report district energy consumption for each building, which means that you're going to have to follow the same emissions factor calculations methodologies as other district energy providers. And so you're going to have to do the district energy emissions factors and supporting documentation and submit that to MDE. And we'll have then the standard building specific emission standards. So for those of you that might be leaning towards scenario B, then definitely you'll want to come to that district energy working group, find out more about all we're planning there. But again, most campuses are the whole campus reporting, in which case you're going to kind of lump everybody together and you're not going to have to do all the district energy calculations, trying to make that a little bit more straightforward for everybody. So on to the next slide. We're going to share a link right now to the campus compliance guidance. It'll also go out to everybody that signed up for this email when we signed up for this working group. But the goal, and we'll also share this in the YouTube link when we put this out, it'll be in the YouTube description as well. We ask for your feedback in a month from now. Review the campus compliance and the draft forms. And there's a survey embedded at the top of that draft guidance. And if you have a read through, have any feedback, you can put it in that format. We are going to take that information and use it to inform the next iteration of this. And we'll also do some follow-up at our next session. If we go to the next slide, the next session is scheduled for Thursday, December 5th from 3 to 4 p.m. You can sign up for that in the informational sessions sign-up form. And we'll also send a reminder out, again, in the email following up from this meeting. But the goal, the kind of big thing we ask is if you want to review the guidance we've put out, see if it answers all your questions. If it doesn't, let us know where you need more information. We'll take that into account as we move forward. So with that, yeah, just a little bit on the resources. The How to Benchmark a Campus guide from the portfolio manager, from Energy Star portfolio manager, is really useful, as well as that FAQ that on campuses that I mentioned earlier. So hopefully we can be dropping those in the chat right now, and we'll be getting ready for questions here in a moment. So if you haven't already, please drop your questions in that circle, triangle, square Q&A feature. Give everybody one more minute and we'll get ready to go. Thank you all for coming here today. As always, oh yeah, Sam, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Decarb. Thanks for all that great information. All right, as Zach was saying, if you have any questions, we're gonna take some time now to address them. Circle, triangle, square, that's where you need to go. Click Q&A. You can submit whatever's on your mind in there. We'll work to get to them during today's session, and as time allows, and if not, we'll address them in future sessions. So, all right. And I also just want to introduce Katie Hatcher from Energy Star, who is here also to assist in questions. So, Katie, I don't know if you just want to say hey and introduce yourself. That'd be.
Hi, yes, happy to be here. I'm Katie Hatcher with EPA's Energy Star program. I'm just here to help answer any technical questions about the use of Portfolio Manager.
All right, thank you, Katie. Okay, well, let's get moving on questions here. First one, let's get to Q&A. All right, Dr. Decarb, you ready? I think I got one for you here.
Let's do it.
All right, so first question from Anonymous. You mentioned that the first third-party verification will happen in 2026. Is that for calendar year 2025? Also, is it only for campuses or for all buildings that require benchmarking starting next year?
Yes, this is a great question. So just to recap a little bit, in the proposed regulations, benchmarking starts by June 1st of 2025 for calendar year 2024 data. So that's the first reporting year is calendar year 2024. You do not, I repeat, do not have to get third-party verification for calendar year 2024 data. The first third-party verification is for calendar year 2025 data. So that is reported to MDE by June 1st of 2026. So we're a little bit of a ways away from third-party verification. And that applies for all buildings, benchmarking and reporting to MDE. So third-party verification is across all buildings. It applies just the same to campuses as it does to individual buildings.
All right, thank you for that. And thank you for that question submission. Okay. Going down the list. I think I've got another one for you, Zach. This is from Elizabeth. Could you please confirm the order of being approved as a campus? You have to submit everything into Portfolio Manager as before. We know if we are accepted as a campus. What if we're not approved? Then do we have to redo everything in Portfolio Manager? Can MDE approve using the form before all of this?
Yes, Elizabeth, good question. And the goal of the form is so that we will review it before you have to enter in Portfolio Manager. So you're going to submit that form, we'll make a determination, and then go from there. So yes, and we can try to clarify that in the guidance if that wasn't clear. The goal is that form is that kind of first step towards moving you towards a campus. And so that you wouldn't have to, if we didn't approve you, that you wouldn't have to redo anything. So yes, that is the intention and the whole idea behind the form, and why you might have to submit a little bit of additional information in the form as well.
Thank you for that. And thank you, Elizabeth, for that question. Okie doke. Cruising through. Let's see. All right, another one from Anonymous. Is the campus data spreadsheet currently available?
Well, the spreadsheet itself is not yet available, but the screenshots that I shared with what will go in it is available in the appendix of the guidance document. So when you get to the guidance document, you know what, Sam, if you don't mind, I'd love to just share my screen for a minute and show everybody the guidance document so that we're all on the same page.
That sounds good.
Oops. Well, if I didn't, there it is. All right. So if you click the link that we've shared in the chat, you should be seeing the BEPS Campus Compliance Guide. You can see right here the feedback form. You click this, it'll go to a Google form for you to fill out your feedback. And this is the October 2024 draft. We have, again, some of the things you've seen today, but what is a campus and what are the campus compliance pathway requirements? These kind of property types that are under portfolio manager, benchmarking, reporting as a campus, some of the requirements, some of the information we talked about today, the actual steps, and then what to do with those two other forms to make a change, or if you're benchmarking with a not owned by a principal campus owner. Then in the appendix, we actually have drafts of these forms. Oh, interesting. Well, this is going to be a web form. These fields are semi-fillable, which is interesting. That's the first time I've seen it that way, but you can just ignore that. Just so you know, that's what they look like. This is what's on the forms. This is the next form, and the next form, what's required for each. And then finally, here is what the spreadsheet looks like, and what you kind of can plan for this. We will share this after we've made updates based on feedback you provide. So the idea is we will have the next version that is finalized, and we will share it with everybody going down this pathway. And if you're really interested, we can let us know in the email, and we can share it with you ahead. But it's not final right now, so we're not really sending it out to everybody in an Excel format. But this is all that's in that spreadsheet. So if you're just trying to plan, you can very much see what we're asking for. Again, it could change as we get feedback. So we'll let you know when we have a final version. But again, that's available in the at the link we dropped in the chat.
Thank you for that, Zach. Okay. Getting back to the Q&A, and if just a reminder, if you have any questions, we're getting quite a few in the Q&A, so glad to see y'all are curious about campus compliance. If you have any questions, circle, triangle, square, that's where you need to go. Click Q&A, submit us what you're pondering about, and we'll work to address that either in this session or in future sessions. All right, going down the list. I think another one for you, Zach, when you're ready. Anonymous, I joined a little late. Does this campus compliance apply to garden-style multifamily buildings?
Yes. So I will encourage you, whoever submitted this, to go back and rewatch the recording, because one of the just so that you see the full thing and read the guidance document. But this is addressed really, garden style multifamily is multifamily. So you're going to follow the guidance from Portfolio Manager and the FAQs around how to benchmark multifamily. And so if you're listed as one covered building on the list, then you don't have to do anything other than just submit all your data for that one multifamily property. Now, if you've got multiple listings on the covered buildings list, then you're going to have to just submit a form saying these are all one property, and I'm going to do it as a campus. But that's generally that's much more straightforward as well. The standard is going to be the one standard. We won't have to calculate blended things, blended emission standards. So the answer is it depends a little bit, and that final covered buildings list will be released when the regulation's finalized. So we're still making some updates to that, but that will come along. You can see the current version of it, the preliminary one, on our website right now.
All right, thank you, Zach. Okay, next question. Another one for you, Zach. What if you are on a campus where buildings are not separately metered? Campus compliance would then be required, correct?
Yes. So if you've got multiple covered buildings, that are all on a physical campus that aren't separately metered, generally, yeah, you are going to be following this guidance, because that's the only way to properly benchmark those buildings. But that just, I realized too, I wanted to add for that person asking about multifamily. Again, this is an option. If you really wanted to, you could do separate. You can always benchmark buildings separately if you'd like, and you have the data to support it. But in this case, that this most recent question was asking, if you've got only can benchmark with multiple buildings, then that's a really good reason you're going to use campus compliance to move forward.
All right, thank you. And thank you for that great question. Okay. Another one. Zach, coming to you again. If you choose to pursue the campus level compliance pathway, does that automatically trigger your campus as needing to comply with the 2025 data requirement?
I guess I'm not totally clear what you're referring to. Every covered building in Maryland has to provide benchmarking data and report that to MDE in 2025. So really any building that's covered under BEPS is going to report in 2025, whether you're a campus or not. So hopefully that answers your question. If it doesn't, feel free to submit another one in the Q&A. Maybe you can clarify a bit and we'll try to get to it or follow up with you.
All right, thank you for that. And thanks for that question. Okay, moving right along. Okay, regarding the unique building identifier, how do you know if you have a UBID, Zach?
Yes, so the current preliminary list, every building has a unique identifier that's on that list. Each row has a unique identifier. And so that's what the UBIDs are. They're unique identifiers for each building in the state. If you're on the current preliminary list, then you've got a unique identifier. When we do an update and finalize the regulation, you'll again see those same you'll see identifiers and the buildings on it. But that's kind of where we're directing folks and where you'll find it. Now, if in general, and I'll just say it here, I know this is campuses, but if you're not on the covered buildings list, but you are over 35,000 square feet, you're still a covered building. And all that means then is you're going to need to submit to us and say, I don't have I'm not on the covered buildings list, but I'm over 35,000 square feet. We'll generate that unique ID and you can go on your merry way through the benchmarking process. So again, disclaimer here, just because you're not on that list doesn't mean that you're not covered if you meet the definitions in the regulation. That will be another process to just generate you and get you into the system. So that's kind of a little bit more information there.
Thank you for that. Okay. Thank you all for your questions. I think this is the most questions we've received in a working group so far. So thank you everyone for being here and for asking these great questions. Again, we're going to work to get to them during today's session, but we always catalog any questions that we haven't gotten to, and also the ones that we have gotten to, and reserve them for future sessions. So keep firing them at us, and we'll work to get to them. So moving right along. Okay, I think I might be able to take this next one. So how do we pre-sign up for that district energy system working group that you mentioned, Zach? So I believe we may have dropped it in the chat. If not, maybe I can get one of our colleagues to drop it in. But with the same informational session sign-up form that you use to get to this session and get the access link for this session, you can use for all planned MD BEPS informational sessions. So thank you, Zach. So go to that. We'll have, even if we don't have a date set, we will have placeholders in there for upcoming groups. And you can express your interest in the form like you did so for this group. And that'll catalog your information for that session, and we'll make sure to get access information and calendar holds out to you when those are available. So that informational session form is a one-stop shop for all BEPS, virtual outreach sessions. So keep using that. And if you missed any of our previous sessions, you can access the recordings via the BEPS YouTube playlist. And again, all materials submitted or provided during the sessions are posted in the video description of that video of that session. So check that form out. And we actually just posted new sessions to that form last week. So hot off the press, check it out. Okay, thank you for that great question. I think, okay, next question. This one's for, I would think, Zach. Does Baltimore have a similar program, or does Baltimore follow Maryland BEPS?
Yes, this is a great question. So Maryland BEPS applies to all buildings in the state. And just for an example, if you're a building in Montgomery County, if you're, they already have an existing benchmarking rule. You still have to benchmark for the statewide BEPS if you're covered. Now, we've made it really straightforward to submit to both jurisdictions. And if you have any questions, sign up for the benchmarking and reporting working group. Working group number 3 specifically covers how to submit for both Montgomery County and MDE using the same portfolio manager entry. So really straightforward there, and we have some guidance specifically on that. But same kind of thing. If you're in Baltimore City, you're going to be covered under the BEPS, and you're covered under the requirements of BEPS. You'd be covered and submit to MDE as well.
Thank you for that. And thank you for that question. Time check. We've got about 10 minutes left, so keep your questions coming. We're going to keep moving through. Okay. Okay, Zach, I think this is another one for you. This is from Leslie. If you have buildings on your campus that have other exemptions, in, for example, the historic designation, how do you exclude that from portfolio manager?
Leslie, you're asking the hard question. So in general, anything that can be exempted on the energy use side, we have things like parking, EV charging. Portfolio manager actually has a way to enter that information. If you have submetered or separately metered, if you have separately metered data, you exclude it. If it's submetered, you can remove it. But if you don't have that data, then there are estimated energy use metrics for parking and EV charging. And we have one as well for the food service facilities in our TM 24-01, the kind of guidance on this. I'll point you to our a draft benchmarking guide for more information on that, as well as this new Montgomery County alignment document. We're kind of really trying to bring it all together very clearly on how it works. So those are for energy uses. To your question about the historic properties, if it's exempted, right? If it's a historic property, if it's a food service facility, and you can just pull it out, do that. We don't, you can just note that in the form, that it's exempted, done. If it's part of the system, it's using energy and you don't have a way to separate it, that's going to be a conversation with MDE about how we handle that. Those are going to be case by case basis because every situation like that is so unique. But submitting this form will let you get started down that pathway, and you'll just note in the submission that you've got this kind of unique situation of a historic building that's that you get exempted, and then we would figure out how to account for it one-on-one. So some of these very unique scenarios, we don't have standard guidance because there's going to be no standard guidance. It's going to be one-on-one determinations as we go to implement this. I hope that helps answer your question a little bit.
Thank you for that, Zach, and thank you, Leslie. Okay, let's see here. Back into the Q&A. All right, Zach, I got one for you from Hiten. Can property data administrators also be the third-party verifiers if they have the required credentials?
So this is just a clarification here. If that is a third-party property data administrator, right? You are a third-party company providing benchmarking services to that building, and you have one of the required credentials, the professional engineer, a licensed architect, a certified energy manager, or a building energy assessment professional, then yes, you can provide, and we provided this clarity in our most recent benchmarking guidance and the benchmarking and reporting working group. But if you are a third party providing benchmarking services, you can also provide third party verification. If you are on the staff of the building, if you're the property owner and you're on that staff, you can definitely benchmark, but you cannot do third party verification. That is the whole idea behind third party verification. If you have more questions on that, I'm going to point you to some of our existing guidance, and then email us or stay tuned for for more info on third party verification.
Thank you, Zach. And thanks for that great question. Okay, so regarding applications for campus compliance, Zach, what is the deadline to apply for the pathway?
Great question. So you have to benchmark, you have to report your data to MDE by June 1st. We encourage you to submit these requests to do this as a campus as early as possible so we can start working our way through them. And we will handle them on a case-by-case basis, so it's going to take time. We don't have a concrete deadline in effect, but if you're not making a good faith effort, if you're submitting this the day before expecting us to turn it around, that's not going to happen. Just being totally honest. So we will maybe, though, take that as some good feedback to try to provide a concrete deadline. But the idea here is, you have to meet the reporting requirements by June 1st. Get going as soon as possible on this front. And maybe to the obvious question of when this would get started, as soon as the regulations finalized, we're going to just start pushing out all of this information in finalized form. Again, we're still taking feedback right now, so we're going to work to incorporate all your feedback. And as we finish that, we'll get this all out there in final form.
All right, thank you, Zach. And thanks for that great question. All right, time check, 4 minutes. Get your questions in. Maybe got time for one or two more. Let's see here, going down the list. So Zach, I see one says, can you briefly describe the third-party verification process, and do we need to hire consultants for the third-party verification?
Yes, so third-party verification is really detailed in the technical manual 24-01, what's required in that third-party verification, the fields that need to be verified. In general, you're going to need a third party to do that, whether it's a consultant or there's a list of providers that Energy Star Portfolio Manager has for this. And so I would encourage, I'd encourage you to look there, and we'll have the guidance. Again, you have time. Not in a rush on this one. The first year is just to get that reporting data in, and then you have a whole nother year before you need to start thinking about a whole nother year before you need to do third-party verification. And so that is going to be, a third party. There are some free options actually for nonprofits and things like that. That's on the list from Portfolio Manager. So there's good options there. And also, when you look at the technical manual, the list of requirements, this is different than an energy audit. You're not having to go in person, do a thorough full day thing. It's really data verification. There might be the individual verifier might want more or less information, but the minimum requirements are in the TM. So, and again, more questions on third-party verification we'll save for that session.
All right, thank you for that. Next question from Cleopatra. I think this might be for you, Zach. We own a retail center that includes retail, office, and multifamily. Is that not considered a campus because it doesn't share the same primary function? The buildings all have ground floor retail with mixed use above.
So yeah, this is a good question, and a little bit hard for me to tell how you define a retail center. In general, if this is one building, you're already just going to report as a single building and portfolio manager and then put in those different use types. And we will automatically create a blended information for that building, right? And so you're going to have, you'd have a you'd say, well, we have 10,000 square feet of retail, 50,000 square feet of office, and another 30,000 square feet of multifamily all in this one building. And your performance standard will be based on the area weighted standards for those 3 different property types. So for most people, actually, that will just solve it for you. And in general, though, that retail center is probably, several, if it's multiple buildings, you're probably going to benchmark those as individual buildings. That's the best way to explicitly capture what's going on there. And so that's generally how you would do it. It'd only be if you've got, say they're all on the same electric or gas meter, that might be why you would be benchmarking that center as multiple buildings. In general, and I know everyone's got different ways to be thinking about it, but in general, campus compliance is intended for those university campuses and things like that, or research campuses that have a whole bunch of buildings and usually a district energy system that's shared between them. That's kind of what it's intended for. So that's the kind of key takeaway here. Most of these other ones can be handled by entering individual buildings in Portfolio Manager with the different use types.
Thank you, Zach. And thank you, Cleopatra, for a great question. All right, everyone. 2 o'clock, I think we can end it with one more quick note. So our colleague Daniela dropped the preliminary potentially covered buildings list in the chat. So you can find that link there. It'll also be posted in the YouTube recording when we upload this session. And you can find it in the appendix section of the BEPS website. So a couple places to find it. That's the preliminary potentially covered buildings list 2023 version. Just a quick note, all buildings over 35,000 square feet, excluding the parking garage area, are covered under BEPS. And whether they're on the preliminary potentially covered buildings list or not. So, but that list is accessible for you all today. So you can find that there. Just want to say with that, thank you all for joining today's session. We appreciate you all attending and all of and submitting your great questions. We will work to address them all in future sessions. So Campus Compliance Session 2 is booked and ready for you to sign up. So hit that informational session form up again, and you can find the sign up there. So we look forward to seeing you all then, and hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much.